Welcome to Rox Talks, the podcast that helps network marketers grow their business on social media. I'm Roxanne Wilson, your host, and today we're going to talk about 2020, the second half. And I know you're probably thinking, wait, we've only done a half of it? Well, a little more than a half. I think it's time that we dive into what you should be doing, thinking, planning, or considering for the second half of what might be the longest year we have ever had. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so we're talking about part due of 2020. I will ask you, how has part one been for you? Now, some of you might be like, Roxanne, the struggle is real. And the struggle, I think, has been real for everyone. I hope that you can look back on the beginning of this year and see what a champion and a warrior you are. Now, I know you're saying, no, I'm not, Roxanne. I didn't do X, Y, and Z. You know what? You survived and you kept swimming. And that is a huge feat. So gone are the days, which I make it sound like it was so long ago, where we would literally sit there and plan, what's your goal for the year? What's your word for the year? Do you guys remember your word? You and I talked about our word for the year. My word was endless. And maybe my word was taken too seriously because this year does feel like it's been quite endless. But my point of the word being endless was because I believe that there are endless possibilities for you and for me and your business. And you might be sitting here going, Roxanne, I don't see that or I don't feel that right now. And I always believe, I used to tell one of my first boyfriends, I was like, feelings are never wrong. Feelings are never wrong. And I do believe that feelings aren't wrong. So if you feel that way, I'm not here to take that feeling away from you. I'm here to give you a little hope that what's coming is better. Do I know what better looks like? No. Do I know that beauty comes out of ashes? Yes, I do. And I know there have been a lot of ashes this year, but that doesn't stop you from surviving, right? You think about even movies that you see where there's been some type of great catastrophe or disaster. The stories are built on those who keep on surviving. Until your story is over, you got places to go. So how do you keep surviving? Well, we used to, like I said, make plans for the year and make plans for the quarter. And maybe a quarter even sounds like a lot of time for you. But I want you to make even baby goals or plans for what you're going to accomplish. You've accomplished a lot so far. So what are you going to accomplish for the rest of 2020? And how do you figure that out? How do you even know? For some network marketing companies, they've had their best month ever, month upon month upon month. For others, not so much. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? Part of it is what was your product, was whatever you're offering something that is pandemic proof, frankly, and that appeals to people. If it is, then it's something that you might be soaring with your business on. If it's not, then it might be a little tougher. It also has to do with like just how companies are running things, but that's a whole nother Oprah. So what I want you to do is dream big. Remember when we say that too? Does that sound weird now? Really though, what would you like to, if you were sitting at the end of, when you're sitting at the end of 2020, what would you like to say that you got done in the last 6-ish months of it? What did you get done? What did you accomplish? That's where I want you to start. Like really consider, well, I did X, Y, Z, and that's something. That is something. So what is it that you want to accomplish? What is it that you would like to see that you achieved in the last 5-6 months? Then what I want you to do is really consider chunking that down and going, okay, ask yourself before you chunk it down, how realistic is that based on what I know is coming down the pipeline, what I know to be true? Now, that's different for other people. If you know that you've got school coming, and maybe you're doing some homeschooling or all the homeschooling, and so your time might be a little bit different than it was before, I want you to take that in consideration. Not to let yourself off the hook, but to be realistic. Because times when we say my goal is XYZ and you didn't get there, but if someone who was looking from the outside looking in would go, well, how did you expect to do all those things given all the things that you have to get done right now? So take a moment and actually ask yourself, okay, knowing what I do know, how realistic is that? And then ask yourself, knowing what I don't know. I mean, in reason, right? What give myself a little bit of grace there, or maybe I make it a little harder. Like maybe I pulled back a little bit, and I'm going to a little bit forward, knowing, thinking about what I don't know. So then you're going to chunk it and decide once you make those decisions, what does the next month look like? What can you do to get a little bit closer to that next month? Here's what I want to tell you, and you'll do that for the next month and the next month. And honestly, listen, Linda, I think at this point you take it 1 month at a time if that feels good. And if you do a month at a time, you're saying I need to do 14 days, fine, or 2 months. Do what's right for you because you are the CEO. Here's what I've been really milling around in my head a lot lately, just looking at what's going on in our world. The companies, and I'm talking about you, the CEOs, the network marketers, the big companies, the small companies, the ones that are going to survive and thrive are the ones that are willing to pivot. And pivot, I know we cliche, thanks a lot, Friends, and a generation of us who watch Friends, but the ones who realize that you can't hold on to what life used to be like or how life always was, because we don't know what the other side of this looks like, do we? I don't know. I'm not even gonna profess to know. I sit here and I think, and every day I talk about, like, in my mind when I think about my goals and whatnot, travel is on there, and I wonder, am I gonna travel the same way I did before? I don't know. I don't know. So what I do know and is that if I am able to adapt to change, then I'm going to thrive. And that's the same for you in your business. If you can adapt your business, adapt your messaging, adapt how you're talking to your target market based on what the way the world's changing, it's going to be a lot more effective. I'll give you another example. I've been talking actually quite a bit over the last few weeks to several people who are who are network marketers who are in the travel industry. And I was talking to one of them. She done my Instagram stories challenge, and I asked her, like, how are things going for you? Right? She's in Australia, and she said, I'm just showing up every day. And I'm showing value to my target market because because I know that when travel opens up again, that I wanna be top of mind. And that's the best thing that she can do right now. If she's gonna stay with travel, that's the best thing she can do and figure out ways that she can be that way. But no one, not I shouldn't say no one. Most people aren't looking to travel right now, right? So for her, she's gotta figure out how she can provide value even when things are on pause. So ask yourself that. But then also take the time to look at and consider how the world is changing. Clarisonic announced last week, or while I'm recording this, so we're recording this on July 21st. Last week, Clarisonic announced that they were going under, that they're closing down. And that rocked my world. I'm like, what? Now, while I don't currently use Clarisonic, so maybe I'm part of the problem, I did use Clarisonic back in the day. I had my Mia 2. And I loved Clarisonic. And it's, even though it's something I didn't use, I never thought that they were going to go out of business. There will be more and more businesses that go under due to COVID, the Rona effect. And if you see a company like that in your industry, even though Clarisonic's not a network marketing company, it's, if you're in the skincare and beauty industry, you've got to ask yourself, why did they go under? What can I learn about that? And what can I do even with my personal portion of my network marketing that can wear the storm, that can avoid that from happening. Now, granted, you're not creating the product, you can't avoid those things, but ask yourself, and I would really do a case study and figure out reverse engineer what happened and what that means. I was also, since we're talking skincare, I was talking to a friend, and she and I were saying, if you're in the skincare industry and you're not currently talking about products that people can use at home, and I'm not just talking about like a 3-step, 4-step type of regimen, but like if you have tools and you're not promoting them, why aren't you promoting them? Because those things are very beneficial to people right now. If you're like me and you live in California, you don't know when you're going to get back into a nail salon, right? So, and I say nail salon, for example, because I got nails on the brain because if you're watching, they look like this. But you don't know when you're going to get back to a beauty salon. So maybe if you can show me a way that I can do some things that are good enough at home, and if you have a tool that I may not have been interested in purchasing or even considering prior because I had my person, but I don't have my person anymore, that's something that you should be focusing on. And I see a lot of focus in some areas, but I'm like, if you have a piece of technology that can help us. Those things that you might have been tired of, and we're going all over the place today, but you're following me, so I appreciate that. Those things that you might have been tired of because you've had those products for so long and they're just not sexy to you could be really sexy in during this pandemic time. That sounds odd, but it's true. So you have to pivot, you have to change, you have to adapt. You have to ask yourself, when I put myself in the shoes of others in given the situation, what's something that might be attractive to them that may not have been attractive to them before, I just was bored with because I've known it for so long. I've had that product. I've had that gadget. Why is that gadget important to me right now? Well, it's not about you, right? It's about your target market. And then again, seeing how you can pivot. And I'll tell you this, let's be really raw because that's what I am here for you. I give it to you straight. You might realize that whatever industry you're in does not have longevity post COVID. You might say, wow, it's going the way of Clarisonic. And if that's the case, then you need to ask yourself and have those real conversations with yourself on what you're going to do about it. Does that mean you're going to sell your business, leave your business, open another business? It's time to make those decisions as well too. What I don't want to happen, and I heard this the other day, and it was like, I heard it on another podcast. I listen to podcasts, and the person on the podcast was saying that you've heard that moniker, like when God closes one door, He opens another or opens a window. He said, what happens though is we go to that closed door and we jiggle it and we try everything we can to open it. Now I'm going to elaborate. We get the blowtorch out and we're trying to like rock it and kick it and all these things when we are spending so much time trying to open a door that is closed, like it is closed. We should be spending that time looking at and opening the other doors that are there for us. And it may not be the first door you go to. That door might be closed too. It doesn't say when he closes one door, he opens the next door next to you. You might have to open 6, 7, 8 doors or try and open, and then one opens and that's your door. But if you spend so much time jiggling at that closed door, y'all, I just have flashbacks like I wasn't there, but to the movie Titanic, where the orchestra is sitting there playing, and guess what? The ship is sinking. So when you think about change and when you think about goals, you have to really assess. We're going back, bringing it all full circle. Assess where you want to be, like dream big. Where do you want to be by the end of the year? Then take into consideration realistically what's going on in your life that you know of coming up in the next 5 months. Then what are the possibilities of things that you don't know, and make those positive as well as negative. Like don't just think, oh, this could happen, this could happen. This is not a doomsday thing. What are some things that could realistically pop up that you wouldn't have necessarily planned for sure? Then ask yourself again what your goal is. Then what I want you to do is remember, you gotta adapt and you gotta change, which might mean if you're like, I really want to get to that big goal, Roxanne, well, then adapting is what you have to do, right? Because you can't get there doing what you did to get where you are right now. So ask yourself, what type of pivot, what type of change do I need to take? And that also means, because you're willing to change and pivot, and we're going to be doing a lot of that for a long time, you have to say, okay, given the current situation of the world that you live in, what things can you change about your business? It might be changing your business completely. It might be changing the way you're talking to your clientele. It might be changing the product that you're promoting. It might be changing the way you talk about recruiting. You have to consider those things and be willing to adapt, because if you do not adapt, you're not going to be around. Okay? That's just the reality of it. Those who do not adapt don't make it. I have an AeroGarden. I have a couple gardens. I told you about that last week. And now I'm going to tell you about the other AeroGarden. So actually the one with oregano and all those, it's happening with both my AeroGardens. My oregano on one AeroGarden, it has cilantro, oregano, and savory. And then the other AeroGarden, which is right over there, which is why I'm looking at it, has Thai basil, has mint, and has dill. So what's interesting is that 3 of those plants, the oregano, poor oregano, because cilantro just wants to take over all things, has learned, rather than growing up, has grown this way and around to get to the light. If you're listening, has grown literally east to west and then north to south. My mint has taken its whole body and angled it at a 45-degree angle to get away from the pesky basil so it can grow and then it's growing straight up. And my dill just likes to do whatever the heck it wants, but it'll find any direction. What are those plants doing? They are adapting. They want to get near the sun. They want to get away from the plant that's bothering them. And they are like, we are going to grow if it's the last thing that we do. And if that means we have to change directions, by Jove, we're going to change directions. That is called survival. I want you to look at the rest of 2020 with that same gusto of those plants. We are going to survive. If we have to juke and jive, we're going to make it happen. We're going to do it, and we're going to rock it, and we're going to grow to the tippy top. But we're not going to do that if those plants just stayed, if the oregano just stayed down there. Oregano wouldn't even make it out of a little plastic cover. If you follow me on AeroGarden, they have the plastic cover, wouldn't have made it past that. There's no way mint was going to make it if it didn't curve and turn and do all its things. Now, maybe the gardener, be me, could help with that, but that's a whole other podcast. Someone do an AeroGarden podcast and help me. But why can't you do that? Why can't you zigzag and juke? Yeah, it might seem like, but isn't it easier to go straight up? We aren't able to just grow straight anymore because our paradigm has shifted so much that there is no straight growing. You're going to have to juke and jive and zig and zag and curve and angle to get there. But I know you can, and it's such a more interesting story. All right, that's all I have for you. And that is like a mixture of all the things. So what I wanted to say to you today is thank you so much for listening. Oh, P.S. And by the way, let's do behind the scenes. So we'll do behind the scenes really fast, and then I will sign off. So we are, I mentioned earlier, July 21st is when this is being recorded. So what's going on in my world? Well, the launch has officially finished. I will tell you that from a monetary standpoint, did I hit my goal? No. Do I feel amazing? Yes. Why? Because when I look at the growth, the amount of new members that have come in is fantabulous. And when I look back at all launches I've done, this one has been just as successful as my best launch before, which is exciting because the launch I did before, I actually did, if you remember, as a 5-day Instagram stories challenge that then led into joining, I changed the whole footprint. This time it was, here's 2 webinars, come to the webinars, learn about it, and then join. And so what was really exciting to me, and I changed the stories challenge, I took that out of the beginning. And the reason I did that is because it didn't make sense. I realized that I was bringing people in on the second level of where they need to be. No, actually, the third level of where they need to be. And there are these other things they need to be taken care of ahead of time. So then they join social stories. I'm like, okay, now that you've done that, let's go back and fix all these things. So I wanted to come up with a way where you could start at the very beginning, a very good place to start, and then the trajectory go up. And so that's why I made the change, and it's been effective. And so I'm thrilled, and realizing that, and looking back at numbers and looking back and realizing it's the first time I've done it this way, I'm totally excited. The membership is closed right now. It is. And just like I said, if you're on my email list, I said, listen, people are going to ask me the next day, can I get in? And I have to say no, because first and foremost, my focus right now is really on my new members and making sure that they have all the things that they need to soar, because social stories works, and I'm there with them, getting them to CEO. But also because I realistically want to be, I want to be true to my word. So if I say it's closed at midnight, it's got to be closed. So I did turn people away, which was like painful. But I'm like, you know what? The waiting list is open, and people are already on the waiting list to join again. So I'll tell you this, when it does open again, I will make sure to give you a little heads up to make sure. And if you're not on the waiting list, get on the waiting list, socialstoriesmembership.com/social stories, and you can get on the waiting list right there. That is that. And I took the day off yesterday. Shut down, did not work, because I said, Roxanne, after that launch and all of that energy, and that it's what I've been working on for months, is revamping and doing all the things and then having the launch. I said, you know what, Roxanne, you are not. So I asked Scott to take the day off too. And we spent the day together, and we had a great time. It was really good. It was really good. And so anyhow, that is where I am. Looking forward to diving in with my new members. We just had the kickoff right before I recorded this, and that was so exciting to see them. And they're ready to go and roll. And I know they're going to rock up. But it's also good to see the community that are at hand, the veterans who are just there, like rooting and cheering everybody on and growing in their own way as well too. So we're in a good place. We're in a very good place. And it's, my happy place is helping other people. So I couldn't be happier. And I'm excited that I get to dive in with them. And I'm just excited that I get to see you every week. So here it is. Just a reminder, you are not ahead. You're not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. And I'm so glad you're here with me on the Rox Talks podcast. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.